I think Bill usually plays the music till 10:02, so we'll stop the music and I'll do my welcome message for the first service of summer, which happened to fall on the 4th of July. And people are coming in slowly and they haven't even started celebrating yet. Well, anyway, good morning to everyone who's here. Welcome to the Zoom service of UUCC, that's the Unitarian Church of Canandaigua. We're a congregation that fosters personal and spiritual growth through religious exploration, in search of the truth and in search of celebrating diversity and affirming the worth and dignity of every person, and reaching out to each other in ways that count. We are glad for those of you who are joining us today. You know me, I'm Pat Harris. Looks like there's nobody really new who's never been here before. But I need to tell you that I'm no longer the worship coordinator, and sitting over on somewhere on your screen, if you're in gallery view, are Danielle and Thomas Lyon, who are now our worship coordinators. And I'm looking so much forward to having them take over that job. There's our board president, if you're in the gallery view, under Savannah's name. And I'm going to be joining him working on the board. And there's Laura Wink, who's another board member. And so it's good to see all of our important people coming in. And someplace on your gallery view, if you haven't, is Chelsea Hunt. She is our own Chelsea Hunt, and who is making time today in her very busy schedule. She's a working mom and a student and an author, and she cares about us enough to give us a sermon to help us think about caring for ourselves. So we're ready to start our service. I'm going to be starting up a video for our first song, which is When We Are Gathered. And I know it's one you know. I'm going to be sharing my screen. Now we'll go to our chalice lighting, and as I light my chalice, we are gathered this hour as people of faith. With joys and sorrows, gifts and needs, we light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. I'm doing the opening words today. I do know that today is the 4th of July. I know you know that too. And while we're not having a whole service on patriotic information, I want to remind us about the day. And it's a special day for me because it was Dwight's birthday. He was a 4th of July baby. And now my granddaughter has a cousin who's a 4th of July kid. And so it's kind of neat. And we used to go find fireworks wherever we were on the 4th of July, which was frequently not home. And so we were frequently not in church because we didn't have Zoom services then. I will probably listen to fireworks displays tonight, although my neighbors put off their fireworks display last night. Fortunately, at about 10 o'clock, not like they sometimes do at 2 o'clock. I might even have some kind of a hamburger or something for lunch, or something on the grill, maybe. I will think of all the injustices that the young men who signed the Declaration of Independence listed in that document against England. And I'll think about the war that followed. And as part of that remembering, I want to share with you some well-known words from the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And here's an interesting fact. Americans have been celebrating independence from British rule on July 4th for more than 2 centuries. But a more accurate date for that celebration is actually July 2nd. Now, maybe all of you knew that, because President John Adams wrote in a letter to his wife that July 2nd should be celebrated by future generations as the great anniversary festival for the new nation. Well, he almost got his wish. We only missed by a couple of days. Now I want to share with you a quote by Frederick Douglass on the 4th of July. It's from his speech that he made in 1852 in Rochester. What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him more than all other days in the year the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim. To him, your celebration is a sham. Your boasted liberty an unholy license. Your national greatness, swelling vanity. Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless. Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow. Your prayers and hymns, your sermons, and your thanksgivings, with all your religious parade and being solemn, are to him mere bombast, fraud, deception, impiety, and hypocrisy. A thin veil to cover up crimes which would disgrace a nation of savages. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. That is not all of his speech. He started out by praising the bravery of the men who chose to seek freedom. But toward the end, he had to say what he thought. Another fact I want to share with you, some tribes, including some in Oklahoma and in South Dakota particularly, celebrate on the 4th of July because the date, the 4th of July, coincides with their sun dances. It's the most important ceremony for Plains Indians. And so from July 1 to July 4th, the Navajo Nation holds a fair and a rodeo to celebrate Independence Day. That's according to their website. Now I want to quote something from the Chicago Tribune that the person writing it, a name was not included because I got it off the internet. But the person claimed to be a Native American. Most Native people see the 4th of July as coming together with the larger American community. We are distinct individuals with a traditional culture, but there are plenty of Indians, his word, who find special significance in this holiday, including many American Indian war veterans who have defended this nation. Believe me, we Native peoples remember that this country was taken from our ancestors, and the taking has not stopped. It might be cutbacks in education budgets or cancellation of programs to fund medicine for our elderly and uninsured. Or it might be a stripping away of our rights to natural resources or a whole host of other issues facing the community. But we are fully aware that colonialism is not dead. We do not need to form a picket line in front of the White House on July 4th to know all that. Here's kind of a related quote from a poem by Joseph Burek, who lives in the Adirondack Mountains and is a writer and a storyteller drawing on his ancestry. It's from his poem, Steel. I did not want to read his whole poem because the second time I read it, I realized just how gruesome it was. But I wanted to use this quote, which seemed relevant. Those who hold papers claim to have ownership of buildings and land. And I want to end his quoting him with a poem, his whole poem because it's short. It's Prince. Seeing photos of ancestors a century past is like looking at your own fingerprints. Circles and lines you can't recognize until someone else with a stranger's eye looks close and says that's you. That happens to be from his book, Sing, Poetry from the Indigenous Americas, a relatively recent book, 2011. So I've shared with you some different materials from different people, from myself, all of us on remembering the past. And maybe this is why we come to church, to remember our past and to consider how others have remembered theirs. So here's to the 4th of July. Boom, pop, sizzle, boom. We're not having a story for all ages today, so I'm going to be going back to Danielle and Thomas to let them do the joys and sorrows.
Okay, quick before that, we'll throw in our announcements for this week. Next Sunday is a little bit of a busy Sunday. The July board meeting will be at 11:15 on Zoom. So if you have any business, let your friendly board members know. After worship from 12 to 3 p.m. on that same Sunday next week, everyone is invited to the RICA picnic. That's Rochester Area Interfaith Climate Action. It's a zero waste, bring your own everything family picnic. I'll put a link in the chat where you can RSVP. Next, the following Friday, July 16th at 6:30 p.m. and then every other week on Zoom, those Friday evenings at 6:30. Team 6, which used to be known as the Social and Environmental Justice Committee, will be meeting, sometimes business, sometimes learning, sometimes just enjoying each other's company. On July 17th, we will be participating in the Walk for Migrant Justice. Our team will meet up near Twisted Rail Brewing Company or the Canandaigua Lady Dock, that same general area in the park. We'll be walking over to the pier and then coming back to where we started to have a bring your own everything picnic on the lawn. If you are interested in coming for the picnic, but the walking seems like too much, we expect to be back in that area by around 12:30. I'll put a link in the chat to where you can join our team or donate to our team members. And finally, if you have announcements for upcoming weeks, send an email to thomaslyon@tflyon@gmail.com so that we can make sure to get them in on Sundays. And we'll also share with Scarlett to make sure they make it into the email blasts.
All right. So now's the time in our service when we share our joys and sorrows. If you have anything that is weighing on your heart or lifting your heart up, please enter it into the chat box on Zoom so that we know that wherever you are on this holiday, we are with you. For the joys and sorrows shared and those held in our hearts, we are with you, especially like to recognize people welcoming summer, enjoying being together, the concerns over family members who are going through health issues, tech support, as well as new outdoor things so that we can enjoy our summer. All of these things we hold in our hearts, and we are with you. Now is the time in our service when we join together in the spiritual practice of generosity. Our gift and support help our church's work. The work is summarized in our covenant. The covenant says, in service to the values that unite us, we will foster community and compassion and caring for all, value our diverse opinions, and engage in respectfully in all of our interactions. If you would like to give to this morning's offering, you can give online at canandaiguauu.org/connect, or physically by mailing a check to the church. In either case, note on your check if you would like the gift to go towards this Sunday's offering or your pledge. We share 25% of our monthly offering to our service partner. Our service partner this month is The Spot, who is led by our very own Sarah Chilson. They provide free school supplies, clothing, shoes, and personal items, as well as food support to children here in the Canandaigua School District. They believe that we can help children reach their full potential in and out of the classroom by providing these basic needs.
And we'll put that information for where to donate in the chat and switch back over to Pat Harris.
It's now time for us to be ready for our centering and shared silence. Get yourself comfortable, whatever is comfortable to you, with your feet on the floor, your hands folded, hands by your side, whatever works for you to get comfortable. I have a meditation on hope and love in a time of struggle that I've adapted. The meditation is from the UUA site, and it is by Alice Anachaki-Naisman, and so it goes. In a world so filled with brokenness and sorrow, it would be easy to lose ourselves in never-ending grief, to be choked by our outrage, to be paralyzed by the enormity of suffering, to feel our hearts squeezed tight with hopelessness. Instead, this morning, let us simply breathe together as we hold our hearts open. Breathing in as our hearts fill with compassion. Breathing out as we pray for healing in our world and in our lives. Breathing in, opening ourselves to the transforming power of love. Breathing out as we pray for peace in our world and in our lives. Breathing in as we hold hopes in our hearts. Breathing out as we pray for justice in our world and in our lives. May we know our strength. May we be filled with courage. May our love flow from us into this world as we sit together in a few minutes of silence.
life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stir. Move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Now we go to Chelsea for our sermon for today.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Independence Day to those who celebrate it. When I agreed to give this talk a few months ago, I thought today would be the perfect choice because it would be so easy to choose a patriotic topic and give a fluffy or maybe even a politically validating talk to all of you about our country and its sins, or maybe instead our country and its virtues. But every time I started to think about what I might say, my mind kept pulling me in a different direction. So after weathering 4 years of the last presidency together and a year and a half of a pandemic not quite together, what I, a counselor in training, feel compelled to talk to you about today is the burnout you might be feeling, not just as a professional or as a volunteer or as a parent, but generally as a human being. According to Barbara Rubel, who is a traumatic stress expert, compassion fatigue involves mental, physical, and emotional exhaustion. Symptoms include headaches, grief, nightmares, and feeling disconnected from others. Burnout is a more severe problem that results from working in a stressful environment. Symptoms include exhaustion, anger, frustration, cynicism, negativity, and withdrawal. According to helpguide.org, someone experiencing burnout is undergoing excessive and prolonged stress, feels overwhelmed and emotionally drained, and is unable to meet constant demands. And let me tell you, people are burned out right now. And that's totally fair. But I've seen leaders, colleagues, and friends who are normally open-minded, good-natured, and thoughtful react judgmentally and unfairly to others who, yes, have made some mistakes or don't have all the information, but who truly mean them no harm. The literature on burnout describes it as a problem for industries, with particular professions being at higher risk for burnout and turnover than others, like mental health counseling. It's also a problem the self-help industry has circled around like sharks to an injured sea lion. Here, do this, lean in there, take better care of yourself, do it all, and then do more. And if you let it get you down, you must not be cut out for the job. Some of us go through fits and starts with lots of energy for a few days where we cram our lives full of opportunities and projects, only to quickly find ourselves unable or uninterested in doing even small or basic tasks and letting the pile accumulate until the next bout of energy strikes. This is a toxic and unsustainable roller coaster, one that I am undeniably guilty of being on and trying to change. Never mind that job and the grad school and the kids and all the committees behind the curtain. But the truth is, I'm suffering when I do this to myself. The truth is, I'm not sure what drives me to these peaks and valleys, but I want to level it out, and not just because of the risks to my own health. Even though I'm training to be a counselor, this pandemic and the end of my first marriage have shown me that my personal life also works more effectively when I have solid relational supports. My first husband, not a bad guy at all, but he was unable to support me to the level that my active lifestyle requires. And neither were the friends that I had when I lived in Florida bad friends, but those friendships were quite superficial. Can I survive like that? Yeah, and I did for 11 years. I didn't really know any better. I proudly took up the mantle of the unsupported women in my family who came before me. bearing the torch of keep calm and carry on in spite of anything that was happening to me, in spite of any feelings or needs that I might have. My life was the sacrificial glue that held everyone else's life together, and I never questioned that from childhood through childbearing. Now, arriving in a different kind of life has not been a walk in the park by any means. Enormous levels of destruction and deconstructing were required before I had enough pieces to build a pathway out of survival and into thriving. And many people have been confused about my metamorphosis, frequently including myself at times. But my professors and counselor alumni from SUNY Brockport tell us to trust the process in the experiential mental health program that I'm enrolled in. And ain't that the truth of life also? After all, this falling apart, hard as I fought it at the time, led me to a partner and new friends who can and happily do support my ambitions, to enroll in that grad school program in the first place, to take on a new job and a new committee this year, to move out of the shared family home and renegotiate motherhood. On the week she was nominated star student, my daughter Hazel told her class, "I'm going to be 1,000 things when I grow up." And I'm so happy she's staking her claim to a well-lived life now, the ripe old age of 7. I don't think any of us here doesn't have 1,000 things to do today or any other day, but I have often wondered, both professionally and personally, what makes the difference between someone who can thrive in that kind of space and someone who feels like they're drowning in it all? Or, well, what makes the difference in my own life from one week to the next? And as I found out a few months ago, Brad Stolberg, a writer and performance coach, offers a different view than work less and self-care more. He points out that people experience different kinds of passion in their work. They might experience what he calls the obsessive passion that leads to workplace burnout, where one is motivated by external sources and becomes more and more frustrated with their work, eventually burning themselves out from exhaustion. Or they might experience what he calls harmonious passion, where someone is intrinsically motivated and finds themselves not only able to withstand long hours and hard work, they actually enjoy those long hours of hard work. And this is the marker of stable performance. Now, did you know that you can think really anxiously about your breath? Did you know that you can become aware of the fast-paced thoughts in your head without ever detaching from them? Because that was my whole home experience of meditation for years. Sometimes we get so caught up in improving our productivity, even from a mental health standpoint, that we lose touch with our heart and soul processes, which are really what need attention. There is some valuable advice that can be found in the self-help world, don't get me wrong, and certainly I'm not trashing any spiritual practices themselves, but I'd argue that most self-help at its root simply offers more things to fail at. And what do I mean by that? I mean that every single book and website and guru on the internet is telling you that their way is the one true way. And if you could just get a handle on their way, you'd be saved from the imbalance and the misery that you feel. It is why Tim Jackson, a professor of sustainable development at the University of Surrey, argues that the engine of consumer society is discontent. He says, anxiety must tip over into outright dissatisfaction if capitalism is to survive. Consumerism must promise paradise, but it must systematically fail to deliver it. It must fail us, not occasionally, as psychologists suggest, but repeatedly, endlessly invoking desire, relentlessly delivering disillusion. The success of consumer society lies not in meeting our needs, but in its spectacular ability to continually disappoint us. So in this way, self-help can become an obsessive passion itself, leading people to emotional exhaustion and anxiety and depression rather than the salvation or freedom or peace that they were looking for. The trendy buzzwords that get thrown around that promise some vague sense of improvement on productivity, like self-care, self-parenting, meditation, mindfulness, wellness, compassion, cognitive flexibility, and positive thinking, that are all meant to fight off other trendy buzzwords like compassion fatigue, burnout, anxiety, depression, emotional exhaustion. It can feel impossible to truly appreciate what a human being really needs to be well, to really feel well inside our own bodies and our own lives, rather than worrying if we measure up to someone else's idea of healthy and therefore happy or even good. There is a very superficial sense of what we're doing, even in pursuit of better emotional health. So that's why I sat up and paid close attention to one of Brad Stulberg's blog posts, which I came across a few months ago, that suggests that anyone who really cares about solving the problem of burnout and compassion fatigue should look at the question of why we work rather than how we work. If we can stop and assess our levels of three things, those are belonging, autonomy, and mastery, we can set ourselves on a course for fulfilling work lives. And I would expand that, however, to any pursuit we engage in that we value, including our romantic relationships, family connections and friendships, as well as the volunteer work and schoolwork that we engage in. After I read it, I began to assess my entire life with this test. And little by little, I've been able to make adjustments in appropriate places. So I've addressed the topic of belonging with my partner. I have addressed the topic of autonomy in my volunteer work. And I have addressed the topic of mastery in my classes. My first shift at Wegmans is literally tonight. I'm a newly minted working mom, and I suspect that a big part of why Wegmans is rated one of the best places to work in America every single year is because the Wegman family understands that BAM is how you build an empire. Each of us can do this, and it's a quick check, even though each pillar can be complicated to address. So using that acronym, BAM, which I just enjoy that, as a mnemonic device, you can ask yourself a basic question for each letter. So B for belonging. Do I really feel like I belong here in this place and with these people? A, autonomy. Do I have a sense of autonomy and use of discretion? And M, mastery. Do my skills sufficiently and appropriately match the tasks at hand? Now, I can't tell you what to do if the answers to any of those questions is a no for you, because there is no one-size-fits-all answer to everyone is differently sized questions. But it is a starting place. It is something that can remind you to slow down internally so that the external world doesn't push you around. For me, slowing down inside my mind allows me to relax enough for all the mindfulness and self-care advice to actually become effective. Checking if I have the BAM factors when I feel tense and stressed and exhausted reminds me that I'm not inadequate and that I don't have to keep trying to prove myself. Having simple checks like this help me take care of me and my community before I burn out and feel the need to withdraw, thereby destroying the very relationships that support me. If I cannot relax enough to allow them in, I am doomed to failure and loneliness. I can't speak up to say what I want or need. I can't express respectful boundaries around the work I need to do and set respectful boundaries with that work in order to cherish the people closest to me, including myself. I must relax before I can focus on my breath, slowing down my internal steps so I can stay thoughtful, make good choices, and be present. So I hope something I mentioned this morning sparked something new within you too. I'm not just going to tell you to be kinder or gentler or more relaxed, because nobody needs to be told to do those things. We might need the occasional reminder, but nobody wants to be difficult or impatient or burned out. Your experience on the inside of you reflects on the outside one way or another, no matter how much you might want to disguise the truth. So let's check on each other and check in with ourselves when we notice those old tensions setting in, shining love in all directions as much as we can. May the rest of your holiday weekend be filled with slow thoughts, open hearts, and warm voices. So say we all, blessed be, and amen. And please join us now in singing out from home with our closing hymn, Comfort Me.
Thank you, Chelsea, for that absolutely wonderful message. I'm going to bam a lot today. It's time for us to extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame. But not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry into our hearts until we are together again.